Yeah. Um, yeah, we are live now. So, Namaskar, Pranam Maharaj. Today, I'll be moderating the program, and um, nice to see you. And Ranjita, you can introduce Maharaj.
Thanks, Showman, and welcome to all of you to this Vedanta Society of New Jersey presentation of Maharaj Swami Atmajnanananda, or our beloved Stuart Maharaj. Thanks for joining and thanks for your support. Very special thanks to Showman, Paramita, and the whole team for organizing this event. This will help us all to keep in spirit and together mentally and physically, as we all are forced to remain physically separate by COVID-19. You all know Swami Atmajnanananda, our Stuart Maharaj, and I don't need no other introduction, though he's in Washington, D.C. He's also our Maharaj and our spiritual leader. It's always spiritually inspiring and motivating. Maharaj. And this evening, the topic of his discussion will be Jnana-misra-bhakti, or devotion combined with knowledge. So let us all welcome Swami Atmajnanananda and our beloved Stuart Maharaj. Maharaj, আমাদের সবার প্রণাম. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Rajita. उत्समेन नमो नमः नमो नमः नमो नमः। मेरे तो गिरधर गोपाल दूसरो ना कोई, मेरे तो गिरधर गोपाल दूसरो ना कोई। जाके सर मोर मुकुट मेरो पत सोई, मेरे तो गिरधर गोपाल दूसरो न कोई। आसुवन जल सींच सींच प्रेम बेल बोई, अब तो बेल फैल गई आनंद फल होई, मेरे तो गिरधर दूसरो न कोई। तात मात भक्त बंधु आपरो न कोई, तात मात भक्त बंधु आपरो न कोई। छर गई कुल की कान का करिछे कोई, मेरे तो गिरधर गोपाल दूसरो न कोई। चुनरी की टोक और ली लोई, चुनरी की टोक और ली लोई, मोती मूंगे उतारे बनमाला पोई, मेरे तो गिरधर गोपाल दूसरो न कोई। जाके सब मोर मुकुट मेरो पत सोई, मेरे तो गिरधर गोपाल दूसरो न कोई, मेरे तो गिरधर गोपाल दूसरो न कोई। स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्म स्वरूपिणे अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। ओम नमो श्री भगवते रामकृष्णाय नमो नमः। जननी शारदा देवी कृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयो श्रुत्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः। नमो श्री यतिराजाय विवेकानंद सूर्यये सच्चित् सुख स्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहरिणे गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुदेवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। राम कृष्ण भज रे मन पवित्र नाम प्रेमेरी ठाकुर तिनी जय बलो तार राम कृष्ण भज रे मन पवित्र नाम प्रेमेरी ठाकुर तिनी जय बलो तार कामार पुकुर जन्म निले गदाधर नाम धरिले कामार पुकुर जन्म निले गदाधर नाम धरिले पुण्य সেই দেশের মাটি ধন্য সে থার মানুষ সকল রাম কৃষ্ণ দক্ষিণেশ্বর গঙ্গা তীরে ভবতারিণীর সেই মন্দিরে দক্ষিণেশ্বর গঙ্গা তীরে ভবতারিণীর সেই মন্দিরে মামা বলে ডেকে ডেকে কেবল মামা বলে ডেকে ডেকে মা 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 কেবল মামা বলে ডেকে ডেকে জগন্মাতার দেখা পেলে রাম কৃষ্ণ ঠাকুরের সহধর্মিনী মা আমাদের শারদামণি পূজ্য স্বামী বিবেকানন্দ মহান কত ভক্ত বৃন্দ রাম কৃষ্ণ যত মত ততই পথ অমর বাণী কথামৃত যত মত ততই পথ অমর বাণী কথামৃত হিন্দু খ্রিস্টান কিংবা মুসলমান বহু রূপে এক ভগবান রাম কৃষ্ণ রামকৃষ্ণ পরমহংস যুগাবতার পুরুষোত্তম যিনি রাম তিনি কৃষ্ণ তিনি হলেন রামকৃষ্ণ রামকৃষ্ণ রাম রাম কৃষ্ণ হরে রাম কৃষ্ণ 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 রাম হরে রাম কৃষ্ণ রাম রাম কৃষ্ণ হরে রাম কৃষ্ণ ভজ রে মন পবিত্র নাম প্রেমেরি ঠাকুর তিনি জয় বলো তার, জয় বলো তার। রাম কৃষ্ণ রাম কৃষ্ণ, রাম কৃষ্ণ রাম কৃষ্ণ।
Did you write that yourself?
Yes.
I
By Thakur's blessings. No, I didn't write.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Maharaj, you can start now.
Okay, I will start.
Yeah.
Okay. Our topic is Jnana-misra-bhakti, and this is a term that we find used sometimes to describe the philosophy of Sri Ramakrishna. We usually don't try to pigeonhole him too much, put him in any one particular category. But this seems to work fairly well. Jnana-misra-bhakti will be devotion combined with or based on or having a ground in knowledge. Now, we may think that, well, he taught Shuddha Bhakti, pure devotion. I don't think when he used that term, Shuddha Bhakti, that he meant devotion devoid of knowledge. I think he meant by pure devotion, I think he really meant selfless devotion, ahetaki bhakti, where one doesn't ask anything. One only wants to love God and serve God and certain devotees of God, that it doesn't mean that there can't be some knowledge behind it. Because when we read the Gospel of Sri Krishna, Kotamrita, we see on every page the very highest type of wisdom and knowledge. And we find that there's no contradiction between that and the highest teachings on bhakti. So we have a long tradition where jnana and bhakti have been considered a little bit like oil and water. You either follow the jnana marga or you follow this bhakti marga, and usually the jnanis are non-dualists and the bhaktas are dualists. This is common understanding. It's not 100% true that there have been many schools of kind of a devotional non-dualism. You'll find in the Kotamrita sometimes somebody will say to Sri Ramakrishna, "Oh, how wonderful! We've never seen this combination, this devotion based on non-dualism." And he would say, "Why? We have Adhyatma Ramayana and other things." He would point out to that. So there is a tradition. And of course, we have Shaiva schools and Shakta schools that will be more non-dualistic and that will be more towards the path of knowledge, and yet the followers will have a lot of devotion also. So, as I say, it's not a hard line that separates these two, but traditionally, if we look at the devotional traditions in India, mostly they've been those that are following the dualistic schools, Madhva's philosophy or Ramanuja's philosophy, qualified non-dualism, generally. And Advaita Vedanta will be more for those who are interested in the Jnana Marga. They won't necessarily stress devotion as much. Now, as I say, there'll be lots of exceptions, but this is something that is generally understood, and there's some truth to it. The dualistic schools, they can also claim to be jnanis. If you read the teaching of Madhva, or you ever get stuck in an argument with the ISKCON people, you'll find that they love reasoning and argumentation. So they'll also, if they want, and they'll have all of their tough commentaries on Brahma Sutras and everything like that. So we see that on some level they can claim to combine them, but really it's when we come to Sri Ramakrishna that we find that there's a full-blown marriage, that they need each other, they work together, they help each other. Devotion is based on knowledge, that the bhakta will end up in the same place, that same oneness that the jnani does. So we really get a type of teaching that I won't say that we don't find it anywhere else, but there's something unique about it. The emphasis that's given to both, and we find that no contradiction whatsoever. They help each other. Now there are many different ways that he does this, and I want to start with just mentioning some of the special features of the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna that will help us understand, because he has a completely different view of jnana and of philosophy than the acharyas or the philosophers. For him, the philosophical position is just one viewpoint among many other viewpoints, and that they're all valid. The acharyas came with a different purpose. They came to establish a particular philosophical system. That meant they had to argue against the others. They had to find flaws in the logic of the others to establish their own position. Sri Ramakrishna likes all of them. He doesn't establish the truth of them by criticizing any of the others. He shows the utility of all of them, and he doesn't base it on the fact that one is true and one is false. Because for him, truth is experience. It goes well beyond what he calls this mot. We have this term mot. Joto mot toto pot. We heard it in the song. And it's very important to understand this in a deeper sense, not simply that all religions are true. Generally, we take it that way, that he's referring to all of the different Hindu schools of Hindu philosophy or devotion, and Islam and Christianity and all of the other religions. It's true also, but I think we have to understand it in terms of the different schools within Vedanta, that the dualistic school is also a path, qualified non-dualistic schools, and the Dvaita Vedanta, that these are different paths. So there can be no contradiction between one path and another, only we follow it separately. There are different ladders that take us to the roof. This was his worldview. So others will say, no, there can only be one thing is right and the other thing has to be wrong. He didn't take that point of view. So for him, a Sanskrit mata, darshana, these mean more or less the same thing. Drishti, we have different terms for that. It means that this is a particular way of looking at something. Swamiji emphasized this also. If we stand in the middle of a room and we see it from one angle, we look at the corner, we're seeing the room. If we're in the corner and we're looking at the rest of it, the room will look different, but it's the same room. There's no contradiction among them, but the viewpoint will be a little different. So these different matas, Jotomot, Totopot, these are different paths that will take us to God, but he always adds, Tobe Mot Pot Ishonoi. He would say that all the different viewpoints and faiths are paths to God, but don't confuse the path with God. Don't confuse the philosophical position with the ultimate truth. It's a means of getting there, and we can get there through all of the different schools. So for him, the dualistic school is equally valid as the qualified non-dualistic school, and finally Dvaita Vedanta, the non-dualistic school. The only distinction we can say is that he felt that that ultimate experience was one of oneness. So for him, the dualistic path will start out as a dualist, but it'll take us to that same oneness that all of the others do. So each is valid, but each equally falls short of what we call truth, because truth for him is realization. So he'll give the example that we talk about a person as long as the person isn't there. And each of us will describe that person differently. Some will say, oh, this is a great jnani. Others will say, no, he's really a wonderful devotee. Look at how many ways we can describe Sri Ramakrishna. He says, but as soon as that person comes before you, there's no need to describe or explain or do anything, that we have the person. We have that experience, and that person carries with him all of the possible descriptions. Or Swami Swananji, he used to say that for the child, the mother is a mother. For the husband, she's the wife. For the student, she's the teacher. But when she comes, does only the mother come to the child? When the woman comes, everything comes. Every possible aspect of her is included in that. Child may still just say, "This is my mommy has come," but everything is included in that. And the real truth is the person. The real truth is Brahman itself, is that realization. Now, I want to talk about two different things. You've all heard me say these things many times. I hope that you're not getting bored with all of this. But Sri Ramakrishna had two special ways of determining what spiritual path one should follow. We've seen this many, many times. One is called Ruchi Bheda. Okay? Ruchi Bheda. And the other, we have a few people in the room. They've also heard me say this so many times. And the other, Hajam Shakti. Jaja Pete Shoy. Thakur has nice expressions for these things. If we want to be more philosophical, we'll say this, Adhikaravad. Adhikarata. So the first, Ruchi Bheda, is that we all have a different taste. We like different things. And a belief system is usually not based simply on what we think is true, but what we like to think is true. If we analyze our minds, say, well, why do you believe that? It pleases me. I like to. It works for me somehow. It's something absolute or 100% logical. This is a belief system, because belief means this is something that we have to take on faith, or that it can't be verified. So we call it a belief. So Thakur said that this is one aspect. And the second is we may like something, but we can't digest it. Hajam Shakti. So he gives the illustration, well-known illustration, that the mother buys a big fish and she can cut it up into different sections. She'll take the head and she'll make morigonto. She has one child who loves morigonto and can make it nice and spicy. And then there's another child that likes it, but has a weak stomach. So she knows that I'll make matcha jhol for this child. And others like fried fish and spicy fish and sour, all different types. So the mother knows best both what the child likes and what the child can digest. So this is how Sri Ramakrishna looked upon these different spiritual teachings and spiritual paths, not which is right and which is wrong, not which is more accurate or nothing like that. It had to do which was more helpful to the spiritual seeker with regard to all of this. Now, the point of this is that no matter what preparation is made, all of the children are getting nourishment from the whatever they're eating. The preparation is very much secondary. All the question of how we like it. I once heard another interesting illustration that if you want an alcoholic drink, some people can drink it straight up. And others, they don't especially like the taste of it. They'll have to add something to it, some soda or something, or all different types of things. But they'll all get drunk. It doesn't matter. It has to be presented to them in a way that appeals to them. But they're all getting the alcohol. They'll all get divine madness. This is the point of it. So the preparation is secondary. So the moth is secondary. The philosophical system is secondary because it's taking us to that reality. So what this means is that a lot of these quarrels that the acharyas had, is the world real or is it unreal? Are there many jivas or only one jiva? Does the jiva continue at the time of liberation? Does Brahman have qualities or not have qualities? These held very little meaning for Sri Ramakrishna. He saw that all of these statements are true from a relative point of view, and yet the truth transcended all of that. So each is a provisional philosophical stance, provisional, that especially the path of devotion. And Swamiji emphasizes this, that we all start out as dualists on the path of devotion. So we can start out, no harm, that I'm an individual, I'm separate from God. I want to believe that I'm separate, God is even far away. We can start out like that. And he says that as we proceed along the path, then love is like a cord. And through that cord, we come closer and closer and closer, and we realize a state of union. We become qualified non-dualists. And then we ultimately merge in the object of our love, and we end up with oneness. So that first stance of separation, we climb up at one step, we get a little higher, we can leave that behind. Everything is provisional. The non-dualist has to start out with the final truth. This is the one little distinction. Now, who is qualified for the strict path of non-dualism? We find that among Thakur's disciples, it was only Swamiji. To a certain extent, they say Swami Turiyananda and Swami Abhedananda, but Swamiji was the only one that Thakur really felt was 100% qualified. So Thakur had this theory of Adhar, this receptacle. Swamiji was a big receptacle, and he had that nature. Now, even for Swamiji, Thakur said, but look, he doesn't have the dry eyes of a jnani. And look at the heart that he has. So Thakur knew that he had both. So even though he was qualified for that path, he also had a tremendously tender and soft and devotional type of heart. Now, one thing that we find is that Thakur never really emphasized this idea that someone should follow the path of devotion and completely give up reasoning. That very often he would have discussions with people and they would say, we just like devotion. And he would say, but if you don't know who you're worshiping, how can you have devotion? So you need a little knowledge. We need a little foundation. We need to have some conviction. If we believe that God is far off in heaven, he used to say this is the lowest, that there are three different attitudes. One, God is far away. The other is God dwells in the heart. The other is God has become everything. These are the three. If we think that God is far away, then do we have any great conviction that God will hear our prayers? Maybe not. Suppose we hear that God is the indweller, the antaryaman, the closer to us than anything. Then a little deeper conviction will come. If we hear that we're just a wave resting on this ocean and we want to worship that whole ocean, then a little more conviction. So having a philosophical ground for these things is very helpful for us. Now, one of the ways in which Ramakrishna combines these two paths, what normally we think of as separate paths, how he combines devotion with knowledge. In order to do it, we need to go a little bit beyond this strict Advaitic conception of Brahman as nirguna, that Brahman is without qualities, Brahman is impersonal, absolute reality, Brahman is pure consciousness. It's very hard to have a devotional relationship that way. They used to joke about the Brahma Samaj, that they would say, we bow down at the lotus feet of the infinite absolute pure Brahman. So how does the infinite absolute pure Brahman have lotus feet? Huh? There has to be some way to understand all of this. So I want to turn a little bit, take a look at what we normally call the Shakta philosophy. This is really just a fancy way of saying mother worship. And the Shaktas, we can say, are non-dualists. I remember Swami Swananji has a nice book on mother worship, and he very clearly states that the Shaktas are non-dualists. Now, we have to understand that the real meaning of non-dualism has to do with the relationship or oneness between the individual self, the Jiva, and Brahman, the Jivatman and Paramatman. This question of the world being real or unreal is secondary. So in other words, one can accept the fact that this world is a manifestation of the Divine Mother, and still understand that the individual self is nothing but a reflection of that one sun, and that's the ultimate reality, that's the real self, but reflected in something which is a real manifestation. So we find with Sri Ramakrishna that he, as following the Shakta philosophy, that he accepts the fact that Brahman is both Nirakar and Sakar. Now, the Sakar aspect of Brahman can be this whole universe. We have different ways of understanding. In the beginning of Gautamrita, that M is asking about God with form, or those who worship God with form, and it's very clear that in those days, especially among the Brahmins, as soon as they heard of Shakar, they thought of idol worship. The first thing that came into their minds, because M is saying, well, shouldn't we tell them that they're worshiping clay, that it's not clay? But we have other beautiful ways of understanding that this idea that God is with form will be all of the different conceptions of God, plus we have this idea, the Purusha, very ancient idea, that this whole universe is the body of God. This is also God with form. So we'll see that for the Shaktas, the worshippers of the Divine Mother, that they will take this Saguna aspect and Nirguna aspect as both belonging to the same reality. That Brahman as the infinite, absolute, transcendent reality, and Brahman is manifesting as everything, and Brahman immanent within everything, is all one and the same reality. Nirakar, Sakar. Only a little bit of subjective element will be added when we talk about this God with form. I'll get to that in a minute. But let me use an example that everyone has heard many times again. The woman and the mother. Okay, this is something that Swami Swananji was very, very fond of using, and I find it very, very helpful. That he says that take the case of a woman. Now, as soon as the child is born, that woman becomes a mother. Now, becoming a mother, does she cease to be a woman? That doesn't change. Sometimes we'll think Brahman and Ishvara are two different things. Huh? Brahman is nothing that Ishvara, once the creation is there. Once the creation is there, then this is Brahman, then we have Ishvara. And as long as the creation is there, that Ishvara is there, not just projecting the universe, but upholding the universe. As soon as the creation is gone, Ishvara is gone, but Brahman is not gone. So the mother aspect is no longer there, but the woman is there. That's always there. So the Shakti, but what happens to the mother aspect? It remains in a potential form till the child is born. So for the Shaktas, Brahman is Nirguna, that's the woman aspect. The Saguna aspect will be the Shakti, this Chit Shakti, this power to project the whole universe. So we'll find that with form, without form, both are true. That with qualities, without qualities, both are true, belonging to the same ultimate reality. Now, I want to go to this idea of God with form, not meaning an idol and not meaning this whole universe, but suppose we want to worship God in any of the forms as an as Mother Durga, as Shiva, as Narayana, any of these forms, or any of the avatars, any way that we want to worship, that will have something tangible and concrete, and something that we can use. We may say it's only a symbol, or we may say no, that this is God can appear in these forms, these are manifestations, and all of that. Now, how is it possible? There's a conversation that takes place between M and Sri Ramakrishna in the Gospel, where M asked him, "Sir, what is Brahman like?" Now, normally Thakur will say, "Mukhe bola jaye na baba," that we can't say anything about it. But this one particular time, he says, it's like water. Now, if we look at water, water is a perfect example of something that is formless, essentially. Essentially, it has no form of its own, and yet it takes the form of its container. It has the potential to take a particular form. And in reality, water is never found in its formless state, right? Look at even the ocean itself. It takes the form, whatever the bed of the ocean, whatever the depth of the ocean is, that's the actual form. If we could freeze it, we could move it, we could see that it has a particular form. But it never loses its formless quality. That's part of what it means to be water, that it has no form of its own, yet it can take any form. This is how Sri Ramakrishna understood the nature of a Brahman as being nirakar, and yet it can be sakar. Now, the form that it takes depends a little bit on us, and it's a little bit objective and a little bit subjective. And we have different types of illustrations that Thakur uses. One will be water in certain parts of the ocean, very cold parts, where they can turn into blocks of ice. And Sri Ramakrishna says that the devotion of the devotee is like what he calls Him Shakti. Him Shakti. There's this cooling power that can turn this formless ocean, this infinite ocean, into a block of ice. But each one of us will turn it into a slightly different block of ice, because we have different conceptions of God. And we want to see God in a particular way. For some of us, that block will take the form of Mother. For some, it'll take the form of Shiva or Rama or Krishna, or any of these different forms, and will have different qualities. Then he says that when the sun of knowledge arises, it melts back into the ocean. But even when it's frozen, it's nothing but water. There's the same infinite absolute Brahman, nothing but water. Then he gives the illustration of vat of dye, that someone shows up in a village and everyone comes around and he says, anybody wants their cloth dyed, any color, you come to me and I'll dye it in that color. And they all come and they have different colors that they want. One says, please dye this yellow. He dips it in his vat. Nobody can see what's inside the vat. He dips it in the vat and it comes out yellow. Then somebody says, I want mine green. He dips it in the same vat and it comes out green. And it happens with all of the different colors. Then somebody says that, sir, please dye my cloth the color of the liquid in your vat. And everyone laughs. Now, what will the color be of the liquid in the vat? It has to be colorless, right? If it's any one particular color, every cloth will come out that color. In order for it to be able to manifest every color, it has to be colorless. So in order for God to take any particular form, God has to be formless. So this is, and we can't dye our cloth a colorless color. Huh? We can't do it. It has to be a particular color. So if we think of the other illustration, taking water from a pond. If we want to take it from a pond, we have to use a vessel, whether it's a pitcher or a bucket or a sack, a pouch, it doesn't matter. That water will take that form. and it'll take the name, whatever name we give it. So the form is not absolute. The form will differ. If we don't have this higher understanding, we'll argue and say, no, what you're calling pani is not pani, it's jol. What you're going to do is not jol, it's water. We have to know that the name that's our side. We're giving a name to it. And the particular form is also from our side. That's the subjective element to it. So Thakur gives these different illustrations, and he says that this idea of personal and impersonal also. Now, personal God, we know a lot of that is our own superimposition. Huh? We know that. Even if I say God is mother, do I really think that God has some physical qualities and attributes and anything to distinguish the gender from male or female? No, I like to think of the motherly qualities, that God is loving. God will lift me up and put me on her lap and caress me and take care of me, and I don't have to worry about anything. My mother is there. It's an attitude. So Sri Ramakrishna stresses this idea of having an attitude and knowing that the attitude is more important than whatever we think of as objective reality. It's really a funny term. There's really no such thing as objective reality. We're always superimposing something on it. So Jotomo Totopad was one favorite expression. Second favorite expression was Gyaman Bhav Ten Nilag. So what is our attitude? What feeling of love do we have? And how do we direct it? That will determine what our gain is. What will we get out of it? Not is it true, not does everyone have to worship that way, but what will we gain out of it? So we can look upon God with this personal aspect, and we almost have to. That as long as we think of ourselves as persons, then we almost have no choice but to think of God as having similar types of qualities. Whether we don't have to think of any physical body, but at least loving with justice and mercy and all of these different types of things. Now, we shouldn't think that this is all our imagination, because ultimately we have to understand that that divine presence is within. It is the higher self. It is the antaryamin. It is the inner controller. And above and beyond that, for Sri Ramakrishna, there was a real reality to the Divine Mother, so much so that she would speak to him. He didn't always just say, oh, this is just my own conception, anything like that. There is something objective and something subjective. How much of each is which of that, we can't really say. But at least they should give us a liberal enough attitude that we know if someone looks upon God as Father and not Mother, it's equally valid, not equally true. We shouldn't even think in terms of that truth. Equally valid and equally helpful. Now, there may be different attitudes that are not so good. We're not trying to be complete relativists. If somebody worships a God as a very vengeful God and will destroy all of the enemies and this and that, then that certainly we won't think it's as beautiful an ideal as if worshiping God where everyone are equally his or her children. So there can be ways in which we want to distinguish these, but anyhow, this is Thakur's worldview, which will take into account both the yearning of the heart and the reality of the situation. That if we want to have a relationship, if we want to embrace God, we have to take the water out of the pond. If we want to be real non-dualists, we have to dive in. So that means that we're not using, what is the container? The container is our heart. And it's taking the shape of that we most want to see. Otherwise, we dive in. You remember when Sri Ramakrishna said to Narendra, Swamiji, one time, suppose that there's a jar filled with syrup and you're a fly and you want to drink that syrup, what will you do? And he said, I'll stand on the edge and I'll lean over and I'll drink it. And he said, why? He said, well, if I go in the middle, I may fall in and drown. And he said, Baba, you can't die in the ocean of Satchidananda, you become immortal. This is the nectar of immortality. So if we really want to, we don't like God with form at all, then we can't take the water out of the pond. We simply have to dive deep into the pond. This is also another attitude, a spiritual attitude. So Thakur liked this idea, of course, of bhavas, that, and we'll get to that in a minute, but let me finish with the Shakta idea. Now, I was mentioning before that one doesn't necessarily have to look upon this world as a dream in order to be a non-dualist with regard to the relationship between the Jivatman and Paramatman. And for Sri Ramakrishna, he liked this idea that the whole universe is the manifestation of God, Aishwarya, Vaishojyo. He used to use this term. There's the glory, the manifestation of the Divine Mother. And we have to understand also that this was his preference. His preference. He very often told the story of the farmer whose son had died, and yet he had a dream and all of the sons died, and the farmer said that I don't know whether to mourn this son who one died or the 7 that are no longer living because my dream broke. And then he says for the farmer, the waking state is as unreal as the dream state. Now, he says that, usually he tells us when there's a jnani in the room. He says, I'll tell you a story to your liking. But other times he'll say, I don't like to call the world unreal as a dream. He doesn't say it's false. He doesn't say there's no validity to that point of view, that there's not an angle from which that we can say that this world is like a dream, it's constantly changing. When we pass away, go to another realm, then where's the world then? He doesn't say that. He says, I don't like to call this world unreal as a dream. Look at that Ram Prasad song. Ami chini hote chainama, ami chini kete bhalabashi. He doesn't say that it's not possible to become sugar. He says, I love eating sugar. Why deny me that joy of communion with God? I don't have to say that I'm a dualist, it's that eternally separate from God. I can say that, yes, that's the ultimate reality. But give me a little stick of ego to separate one side from the other so that I can enjoy that relationship. This was Sri Ramakrishna's attitude. So Thakur made a distinction between what was ultimately real and what was practically helpful and what was personally enjoyable. Ultimate reality, there's only one ocean of Satchidananda. The practical reality is that we can't get rid of this ego, that we argue it away and it comes right back, and it's like a stick resting on the surface of the ocean, making us feel some sense of separation. And the final truth is that, well, if we really know that I am that pure self, and this is the ultimate reality, and I come from that, and I can commune with that, and I can have a relationship with that, and I enjoy that relationship, that's what I want to have. So that was Thakur. He understood oneness. He knew the practical impossibility of getting rid of this sense of ego, and at the same time, he took tremendous joy from the relationship of the mother to the child. So he used to say that don't fight this ego. He says, let it remain. Let it remain as a servant of God, the child of God, and that'll be helpful. You'll enjoy it, and it'll also let you establish a relationship. And through one of these bhavas, whether it's the 5 Vaishnava bhavas or the Shakta idea of child to mother, through that, we can transcend this ego sense. And this ego is the one thing that's the barrier. This is really the ultimate truth behind all of this, that all of these attitudes we adopt are meant to get rid of this unripe ego. And if we can adopt this ripe ego, this attitude, relationship, that I'm a child of the Divine Mother, I look upon God as my own child, as the beloved, any of these attitudes, that will automatically put all of our focus on the object of our love, or like the servant, all of our focus on the desires of the master, and we become self-forgetful. Swamiji says self-abnegation is the ultimate key to any type of higher realization. So for Thakur, he liked this relationship. His case was different. He also had to keep his mind down. So he did it by, he used to say, bhakti and bhakta, having enjoy the company of the devotees and be able to experience devotion. Now, I want to just go through one last thing. The avatar that we can be a jnani and say that, well, this idea that God is up in heaven and wants to come down and he'll take human birth is the avatar. It doesn't really appeal to me. So Thakur gives us so many other ways of understanding that as the avatar comes as our passageway to the infinite. Either the avatar is like there's a wall with a hole, and through that hole we can see that divine reality on the other side, that infinite absolute reality. That the avatar comes as the chanch, as the mold. We pour ourselves into that. That he comes to set give us an ideal to follow, like a huge wave when there's an ocean of Satchidananda. We don't have to take it in a dualistic sense. So this is also something very helpful, that we have this living example. Swami Vivekananda makes a very nice point that if we try to think of God in using the help of our intelligence, using the help of our powers of comprehension, and we say to ourselves that God must be the embodiment of pure love and pure compassion, we have all of these very high ideals. And then we ask ourselves, how much do we really know of love and compassion and all of these things? We find our conception of God is very much limited by our own ability to experience these things. Then he says, look at the avatar. The love that we find in Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother is so much greater than what we can imagine as the highest type of love. It's so much greater, and it's right there before us. And it's so tangible that with Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother, we even have their photographs, we have their words. So it's such a tangible way of worshiping God with form. Not exactly the same, because it's a historical fact that they were actually born. They had human bodies and human minds like we do, only everything else about them was different. So it's not exactly the same as trying to conceive of a Shiva or Durga, something like that. But at the same time, it allows us to focus the mind on something very tangible. And these are very helpful aids in meditation. It allows us to have that loving relationship. And because we have so much material in front of us, we spend all day long reading different things about the life and teachings of Thakur and Mother, and we can sit for meditation, we can visualize them, we can go to Thakur's room, Jaidambati, Kamarpuko, and everything. It becomes very living and very tangible for us. So I'll stop here, except for one last thing. I'm going to just go through this one verse that Thakur liked so much, and it helps us to understand the relationship between the different schools of philosophy and how they're all true and they're all helpful. That he tells the story of how Hanuman was brought before the whole assembly in the court of Rama, and Rama brought Hanuman before him and said, Hanuman, how do you look upon me? And we have this Sanskrit verse that Thakur liked very much, that Hanuman said, Deha buddhya tu dasoham. When I think of myself as a body, then I feel that I'm your servant. Then he said, Jiva buddhya tu adangshakaha. When I think of myself as an individual soul, then I'm a part of you. You're the whole and I'm a part. Atma buddhya tamevaham. When I think of myself as the Atman, then You and I are one and the same. There's no difference whatsoever. Then he says, iti me nishtita matihi. And this is my final fixed opinion. Now, I take that final line as referring to all of them, not simply the last one, that you and I are one and the same. That this is that they're all equally true, depending on how we look upon ourselves when we're working, when we're active, and we have to feel some identification with the body. Then we can have that relationship. Whatever I do, I'm doing for Thakur. I'm trying to do his work, whatever that understanding is. When we go a little deeper, we can feel that we dwell within God. And then if we can eliminate this sense of I completely, then there's only oneness. So this is how Thakur took this very deep, high philosophical understanding of these things. Understanding also that it's not truth. Truth is experience. But how we can have this deep understanding, which gives us a firm ground for a devotional relationship with God, and how helpful it is that the jnana aspect is underlying everything, and it allows the bhakti aspect to be vibrant and really helpful in our spiritual life. So let me stop here, Shomen, and we can have some questions.
Yeah, thank you, Maharaj. And those who have joined in YouTube have conveyed their pranam to you. And I request them to send them their questions.
Okay.
And people who joined in Zoom also can ask your questions now.
And we have a few people here.
Yeah,
Very quick.
yeah.
Okay.
Shomen, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Maharaj, Pranam, enjoyed your talk very much.
Thank you.
And my question is really not to do with, your topic today. It's just a very, out of curiosity. Now, from little I know, I think in Thakur's family, they had Sri Ram as their household deity. And so where or how or why did Thakur have this bhakti for the mother? Where did that come from? Was there something that triggered that, or was he?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question. I can't give a very definitive type of answer, except that something deep within him resonated with this idea of mother worship. When he was growing up, it's true that in their household deity was Raghuvir. So this is an image of Rama was there. It was in the form of a shalagram. And they also had Shitala, which was in the form of a pitcher of water. Shitala, not exactly divine mother. It's a feminine aspect, but nothing that we would think of as a type of Kali worship. And when Thakur's father went to Rameshwaram, he brought back a Shiva Lingam. So we find that all three of them were worshipped there. So Rama, Shiva, and Shitala. In his village, there were a lot of different types of temples and things. It wasn't just like a Vaishnava village or a Shakti village, nothing like that. But I don't know of any Kali temple in Kamarpukur, anything like that. So it really came. Was it by chance? Was it providence? Well, we can't say, but he happened to be appointed priest in the Kali temple at Dakshineshwar. Somebody may say, well, what if he had been appointed priest first in the Radhakanta temple? Would it have been different? Who can say what's divine providence and what's not? But anyhow, so he was priest there, and he somehow something was awakened within him, And he was attuned to that type of worship, and he really felt, who is this mother that I'm worshiping? Is it just this image? And he became obsessed with that idea. So I would say that partly it was something innate within him, something in his nature, and partly because day after day he was doing the worship of the Divine Mother. So the mind was absorbed in that, and who can say he did have special love and devotion to his own mother? Who can say, do we want to try to psychologically analyze Thakur? It's very hard to say, but it's an interesting point. One thing I will say is that when Thakur did the Vaishnava Bhavas, that the ones that he really seemed to be most inclined toward emphasize the Rama aspect more than the Krishna aspect. So the Dasya Bhava, that's almost always associated with Hanuman and Rama. But Vatsalya Bhava is almost always associated with Yashoda and the baby Krishna, Gopala. But Thakur didn't do it. Somebody showed up with a baby Rama. So maybe this Ram Bhakta samskara was there a little bit, that he always had some special devotion. The family deity, it's perfectly understandable. And yeah, his life is interesting. How he became so attuned and felt such commonality with Chaitanya Deva. When there was nothing in his village, when he was growing up, he said, we used to hear stories about these Vairagis and everything, and we didn't have much respect for them. And I wondered, did they set up this Chaitanya Deva just as an avatar? Who was he? And then he went to Navadvip, and he had some experience, and he had a vision of Chaitanya and Nityananda. And after that, a tremendous devotion grew in his heart, and perfect conviction that Chaitanya Deva was an avatar. So Thakur used to say that even the avatar has a human mind. And from that point of view, it is susceptible to external influences and experiences and things like that. So very hard
Yeah.
to give a definitive answer. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. Interesting question, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Paratati? You can just unmute. Yeah.
Maharaj,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, like,
Okay.
when I heard that whoever is like devotees who thinks that God is somewhere in the sky
Yes.
are not they are worst devotees. But
Well,
I
they're not. Well, don't say they're the worst. Say
Well-
that Thakur says if we want to have a scale,
okay.
that the others will be a little more sophisticated in their understanding. Yeah.
But you know, all the time when we think that avatar comes from somewhere else.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
So that is the question I always have in my mind.
Yeah.
Avatar is the human beings, but like Brahman is like superhuman being, somebody like that, or
Yeah. Okay. Now, we have something that we call Dhyana mantra for Sri Ramakrishna, for Holy Mother, for Swamiji. You should go through that sometime. It starts out that we're worshiping Sri Ramakrishna,
Yeah.
dwelling within the heart. And then all of the descriptions will be of the highest Brahman, all of these things. So this is one aspect of Sri Ramakrishna. Then it goes on to, that he comes as the avatar also, that same Sri Ramakrishna, to bring love. So he has a human form, that human body, that human body comes from a human mother, right? And let's say Swamiji. Did Swamiji dwell in some realm, this Saptarshi realm or something like that before? These things are true. These are true at the same time on different levels.
Okay.
That God that we worship as outside of ourselves, that's because we're projecting it outside. It dwells within. And yet, we fall in love with the personality of this avatar who was born what, 150 years ago, something like that, and had a personality and all of that. There's nothing wrong with that. But who was Ramakrishna? He was the infinite absolute reality. We all are. Only he knew it. He knew that he was that infinite absolute Brahman, and at the same time knew that he was born with a special mission, that he was not born out of past karma, that he was ever perfect. He knew all about that, and that about himself. So when we worship him, we can worship all. This is what I was saying. When we worship the mother, we have to say that, well, the other aspect is there too. Huh?
Yeah.
Also the teacher and the wife and this and that. So with Sri Ramakrishna, he dwells within as the Antaryaman. At the same time, he came in human form. He lived for a certain period of time, 50 years, 1836 to 1886. These things are all true, but they don't restrict him and limit him. So he was a huge ocean, a huge wave on that ocean, and we're little waves in that ocean, but it's the same ocean, and we're all water. We have that oneness. And yet, one wave can look at the huge wave as separate from it and worship it. Huh? And at the same time, goes a little deep under the surface and feels communion with it. Goes a little deeper, and there's only oneness. Huh? So all of them are true. Different levels, different attitudes, different times.
Maharaj,
Yes.
one second. Chobidi asking something.
Okay. Chobidi.
Chobidi.
Nothing with your lecture or anything, just my question. It's a personal. It is that when we do puja, every day we do that, right? And then sometimes we feel like that puja is not complete. Why we have that kind of feeling?
This is because we feel that we want to offer everything. We feel that everything should be perfect. We want it to be perfect. This we have to understand that it's really what our attitude is. You know that bhavagrahi janadana, this beautiful statement that God only cares for our heart, the love in our heart. It doesn't matter if we pronounce mantras correctly, if the bhog is all perfectly made, all of that. If we do it with love, that's most pleasing. So we don't have to worry too much about these other things. At the end of puja, we should say, I did whatever I could. Please accept it. I know it's not perfect. Thakur will be pleased. Mother will be pleased. We don't have to worry about that. They don't expect anything special from us other than a little sincerity and a little devotion, a little bit of love. That's all. They don't care if we know all of the rules and rituals and everything. Ami mantro tantro kichui jani nema. We don't have to know all of these things.
Why we know that thing, but what happened? I don't know. It's my feeling or something. Whenever I have that I feel like this kind of thing, there is something happen in my life. I don't know why. It's some obstacles or some difficulty, something. Why I have these things happen? I don't understand that. Because when I feel like that, okay, today's puja is not, I don't do the good. And
Yeah.
I know later part, I have something has to happen. I don't know why. And that makes me really scared about that things.
Yeah. I think we all have it to a certain extent. There'll be mornings I'll go for meditation or I'll do puja or something, and I'll think, I really couldn't concentrate my mind. My mind was wandering. I didn't really make such a great attempt this morning. I feel a little bit bad about it. We have to be a little bit understanding of ourselves. We talk about being understanding of other people, that, oh, they tried their best. I know that they have problems with this and that. We take a charitable attitude. We have to learn to do that with ourselves. That this is who I am. That my mind sometimes has doubts or sometimes it's restless. This is who I am. You know, we do this, what's called Manasa Puja. And one of the things is that we offer the mind as the restless mind as a dancing girl. In many temples, they'll have the Nat Mandir in front of the temple. They'll have a performance. There can be a dancing girl for the pleasure and enjoyment of the deity. We can think my mind was running all over the place. I hope it was pleasing, just like Thakur was watching, like watching a dancing girl, watching my mind. Huh? So at the end, if we do this Purnahuti, we say, whatever I did, whoever I am, whatever it is, I lay it at your feet. That's all. Accept the good and the bad of me, whatever weaknesses I have, whatever problems I have, I offer it at your feet. That's all. We can't do anything else. What was the story? Somebody was criticizing the snake for trying to bite Krishna. Somebody said, you've given him poison. What else can he offer? Huh? So we've been given this human mind. What else can we offer? It's going to be restless sometimes. Sometimes bad thoughts will come up even. What can we do? We try our best, that's all.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Maharaj, I have a question.
Pranam, take my pranam.
Okay. The question is, someday when we do puja, we do the same rituals every day. Okay. Same thing over the routine we go. But some days I feel so satisfied. And some days I don't.
Yeah.
So I get confused, and did I do anything wrong, or I don't know.
There's a section in Kotamrito where Thakur says, sometimes I sit for meditation and the mind doesn't get quiet. I don't enjoy it. I feel like I'm just imagining. If he can say that, then what about us? Of course, it's natural. This mind is unpredictable. We can't expect the mind to behave just at the snap of our fingers. It's unpredictable. The mind has a mind of its own. Sometimes it's easily pleased. Sometimes it's in a bad mood. We try our best. We can control it to a certain extent, but sometimes we just can't. And we have to accept that. That's the nature of the mind. So we say this chanchalyam, this restlessness of the mind, I'll offer that also. What else can we do? Yeah.
But yeah.
But we won't always be successful, that's all. We accept it.
But the days I feel good, but the days I feel bad, that I feel I'm incomplete somehow.
Yeah.
And then it makes my all day I'm thinking about that. What happened?
Yeah. No, this is what I say. Don't be too hard on yourself. Don't judge yourself too harshly. This is the nature of the mind. The mind is not under my control. That I wish that every day I could worship to my heart's content, with perfect concentration, with perfect devotion, and that I'll feel so happy throughout the day. But I know it's not possible. It's a human mind, and we just have to learn to accept it. That's all.
Thank you.
Anybody else from YouTube or Zoom?
Okay, for 1 second. Huh? What's that? Yeah. Then we can close. Any other questions?
I can ask one, Maharaj.
Okay.
Yeah. So I always thought, when we do japa, my mind always goes to how many times, the count I do. So is it, which is important, number of count or I think of God? So both both contradicts. So
yeah.
So how should we prepare for that?
Okay. Our Swami Swanandaji, he used to say, because many people would ask this question, he would say, then do the minimum counting and do the rest without counting. But at least do the minimum. At least do that, whatever you've been asked to do. And most of us, it's not a huge amount that we have to do. So do that first. Then you'll feel that you've done what you've been asked to do, and then forget about counting. That's all. Some of our swamis even say that yes, it's a distraction. Mahapurush Maharaj. He actually didn't encourage people too much to either use the mala or even their fingers. Holy Mother emphasized fingers more. He used to say, you know how long it takes. So just, I know if I repeat mantra for a half hour, then I've done what I'm supposed to do. Then there's no distraction at all. Some people, they've done it for so long that it's not a distraction. They're so used to counting on their fingers or something like that. Other people, it helps keep them awake. It helps their concentration. Everybody's different. So some people really love the beads. They love to use their mouth. And they can do it. Those who find it a little bit of a distraction, then just do the minimum. And then the rest of the time, you don't have to bother about the number. Number, of course, is secondary. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
The best thing, though, is to ask, if your guru is still living, is to ask directly.
Okay.
You may get a different answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure, Maharaj. So if anybody do not have any question, we can end today's session. And thank you all for joining, whoever have joined in YouTube. Thanks, everybody. I'll hand over to Ranjita for the closing comments, maybe.
And I think we're supposed to do Ramakrishna Sharanam. Huh?
Oh, yeah, we have to do the Ramakrishna Sharanam, yeah.
Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Sharani, Jai Jai Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Sharani, Kripa hi kevalam, Kripa hi kevalam, Kripa hi kevalam, Sharani, Prabhu Kripa hi kevalam, Kripa hi kevalam, Kripa hi kevalam, Sharani, Jai Jai Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Sharani, Jai Jai Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Sharani, Sharanagataham, 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 Sharani, Sharanagataham, 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 Sharani, Jai Jai Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Sharani, Jai Jai Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Sharani. Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Namo. Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Namo. Jai Jai Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Sharani, Jai Jai Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Sharani, Ram Krishna, Jaya Jaya Ram Krishna, 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 Ram Krishna Sharanam. Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Sharane.
Okay, I'll close with a
Yeah.
Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kashti dukha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from disease. May we all realize the highest good. May no one suffer. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.
Pranam Maharaj.
Pranam Maharaj, আমার সবার প্রণাম নেবেন, and hope to see you soon again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone. I enjoyed it. I hope you'll enjoy it. Hope we can meet again. And everyone, please stay well, be safe, be careful, and Jai Ma.
Jai Ma.
Jai Ma.
Same to you, Maharaj.
Thank you.
Chalo.